Chuck Donovan is to my left, and Steve spoke about him. He's in the program, both of them are in the program, and I'm going to say a few words from here, but then I also know them. So it's an easy toss. But Chuck Donovan is president of the Charlotte Lozier Institute. And he served as legislative director for National Right to Life Committee more than 3 decades ago. He also worked on the Reagan administration. He was executive vice president of Family Research Council. He is knowledgeable. He's informed. He's wise. He's a guy that's been around for so long, not too long, Chuck, but for a considerable amount of time. And he's been able to get a perspective and viewpoint, one on our culture, on several different facets, but also especially on things that we talk about life. And, you know, we've talked about that theme for us quite a bit lately, and last night a little bit into this morning. But these are really, you know, I think we should all be experts in life because we're all born, right?
Yes.
But when we begin to discuss this issue, I just have a lot of regard and appreciate Chuck so much. I serve alongside of him on the board of Heartbeat International as well. So we're going to welcome Chuck Donovan.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
Thank you. The other side is, the other one, it's quick for me to say Charmaine over here, but let me be official. Dr. Yost, which she is phenomenal woman. She has a story that's compelling, but she also has personality that helps us. And let me go back I probably need to stick to this before I start telling about what I think about her. But she's a writer, political commentator. She's a real leader, public policy expert. She's appeared on about every major television network out there. And she's really been a voice in this culture, especially for the issue of life. She's talked on other issues, but she is incredible in talking about life. And she's appeared, with that as well, she has provided testimony in front of the United States Congress on multiple occasions and is also a frequent keynote speaker around this country. She's featured along with Michelle Obama, Rick Warren in Time Magazine's 2013, one of the most influential women. And she's also co-author of Mother in the Middle, an examination of child care policy, published by HarperCollins. And but let me get on to Charmaine, or Dr. Charmaine, whatever you like to call her.
Now you got me nervous.
She is. We know her from quite some time ago, but I'll tell you this: she is a formidable woman, and I'm going to say formidable woman of God that really understands where our culture is. She has a heartbeat and a pulse on what's going on in our culture and country. And she's been a leader. She was even a president of AUL. And but she has been just a fascinating lady who has gotten to know her years ago. I was able to, it was interesting, was I kind of got slowly engaged, slowly involved. I remember seeing her. She was one of the nicest people that treated me at FRC when I came through. But she made things so practical. And I listened to her, and you would make it so simple and practical. I said, I get it. When she's talking, I said, I get it. That makes sense to me. And so that's what I so appreciate about you. And I remember seeing you about a year or so ago. We were down in Selma together. And you were at a church and before the march. And you started talking about you shared at a church, which I don't know if there were too many dry eyes after you began to talk. So just wanted to let you know it was a powerful time and appreciate you coming. So we appreciate both of them for joining us, Dr. Yost. Before we start, I want to show you a quick clip. I'm going to tell you now, it's going to be a little bit annoying to you, but you'll get over it in about a couple minutes.
Yes, sir. 1,000 miles an American army. Japan has made war upon the United States. I wish I could say we can't reach those big guns.
My heart, it's almost hard to talk on that one for me. We saw that, talks about all the different issues that are out there. How do we get here? Is this political or is this, what's going on? So many times they talk about life.
So when Derek invited me to come today and he told me that there would be a room full of pastors and we'd have an opportunity to talk about these issues that are so near to all of us, I really jumped at the chance because, you know, I've invested my entire life, my whole professional career in public policy, and I really believe that public policy is essential to our life and community, and that as Christians we have a place in the public square and in making a difference in public policy. But I do think that there is a spiritual element to abortion that we frequently don't recognize because it has been so politicized. The forces of abortion would like us to believe that it's just another policy issue that we fight over, and that you can have your opinion and I can have my opinion, and we just argue about it in that way. And I think very, very many times those of us in the church have been almost intimidated by this argument that it's political and that pastors, in order to maintain their tax status, shouldn't be talking about abortion, shouldn't be imposing their beliefs on other people. So what moves me about the depiction of abortion is the fact that for every single one of those lives lost, there was a mother,
yes,
there was a father who was affected by that death. If abortion is what we say it is, which is the loss of an actual life that was created by God specifically for a purpose, then as the woman goes through that abortion, she experiences that death in a very, very real, tangible way. I've always been so mesmerized by the stories that you hear of women depicting their abortions, and you know, we may have women and men here in the room today who've had this experience of just being so convinced that abortion was the right decision for them for whatever reason. And then the story goes that they woke up after the experience and instantly felt that they had made a mistake. Why is that? You know, I look at that and say, why couldn't you have known it 5 minutes sooner, 10 minutes sooner? Why waking up? And the answer that I've come to after many years in this movement is twofold. One is it indicates that this is a spiritual battle. Because why wouldn't that woman have known it was a mistake before the event happened? And it's because we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities in the heavens. There's a real oppressor and an opponent who is trying to sow seeds of of deception in the woman's mind and in her heart. And that,
Wow.
so that's part of it. And I don't usually talk like this, but having the opportunity to talk to pastors, I feel like so many times you are in chains in looking at this issue as just political and not always seeing this deep spiritual reality. The second part of that is this: do we really believe that it was a death of a real life? So when she wakes up, she has experienced something. It wasn't just a clump of cells that was removed. It was a death of a real eternal being who had a purpose and a plan from God, and she was there for it. You know, imagine any other death that you are involved in any way, even adjacent to. You know, we give sympathy to people who are involved in a car accident and someone dies near them.
Right.
Because it's a real spiritual event. But in abortion, we don't approach it that way with women. So many times we fall prey to this. You know, we live in this culture the same way that everyone else does, and in some ways, I think that the deception can take root in our own minds of not fully understanding what it is that has happened, and I think that affects our whole community. So I have a lot more to say about that, but I'll stop there because I also want to hear what Chuck has to say.
Yes, Mr. Donovan, help us understand that, and I'd like you to also include one, how big is this abortion issue in terms of the picture, the overall amount of lives? We've heard the crescendo effect. But then also, how does Charlotte B. Lozier Institute fit into this?
Well, Derek, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I've known Star for a long time and have worked with her on the lately, the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. Astonishingly, in 2016, America, a nation founded on the Declaration of Independence, the promise of the Declaration, not yet fulfilled, that we are endowed by our Creator with an inalienable right to life. But in 2016 America, a child born alive has no guarantee that his or her life will be protected. This Congress passed a law but deleted from it a penalty on the physician and did not protect a nurse in the room who would report that a baby was born alive after abortion and was allowed to die or was actively killed. Which does happen in our country. We are a country with a big gap. Thank God we have the promise that we've got in the Declaration and other of our founding documents, and there were a lot wrong with the founding, we all know that. But promises were made there, and we are still waiting for those promises to be kept. I know I would not be in Washington, D.C. were it not for the life issues. And we're way beyond just the abortion issue. We're beyond we're into the chimera issue, where doctors at the NIH want to combine humans and animals for experiments. We're into stem cells, where some doctors are using adult stem cells to save lives, and others are prying embryos open to take those stem cells to use them for other human beings. So we have a panoply of life issues, and this is what the Lozier Institute does. But I know I would not be in this city if it were not the life issue. I came here because in 1975, Planned Parenthood opened a clinic on the west side of Cincinnati. Now, that's a long time ago, Derek, you're right, I date, you can carbon date me. But in 1975, the west side of Cincinnati was dull, it was conservative, it was German and Irish families. It was not integrated at all. That was certainly the residue of our history was certainly there. But an abortion clinic on the west side of Cincinnati was as unthinkable as an NBA team playing in a grade school gym. It just wasn't going to happen. And Planned Parenthood came and opened a clinic there. My brother and I, some friends, we were practically just a little bit more than teenagers, and I've got 9 siblings, so we got pushed all the time to do things. But we said, we got to stand against this place. And I did my research. I read about Margaret Sanger and her history, a negative eugenist, self-described, and realized this clinic was opening not because the people of West Cincinnati wanted it, or felt this was the best solution, to have that message come that life was not precious. It was coming about because the federal government was sending money into Cincinnati to open that clinic. So I wrote a policy paper for Ohio Right to Life. Somebody read it at the National Right to Life Committee. I got called out here and said, do this paper for the country. So I wrote the paper up, and suddenly I found myself in the nation's capital. This is a really tough place to work, because people here, they may engage in the art of the deal. It's more like the mad art or the op art of the deal. There are crazy deals made here, and principle doesn't always rule. So in my view, we're here because the promises made in the Declaration and the instructions, and I'm a religious person, but the instructions that come to us from Jesus Christ, that we are to welcome the stranger, assist the widow and the child, come to people in distress, even the woman taken in adultery, and offer her a way of redemption and hope. That's not how this city works. And if we don't get back to a different foundation, and we were given a foundation where God is the author of our rights, and they apply to everybody equally, if we don't get back to that foundation and make it the center of all our policy purposes, we have no chance of turning this around against the tides of what I would call mad science that now rule us. And I think we are in the most difficult time in American history since the Civil War. Because a fundamental question is in front of us. Is human life unique and precious, and is every human life authored by God? If we don't answer it yes, we are going to have nothing but a world of violence and hurt.
Wow. There's so much to ask you questions on. Charmaine, help me understand, as you said, where are we, what do you feel like is some of the most top level priorities that we can be focusing on and addressing from this life issue?
Well, Chuck makes a really interesting point about this pivotal moment that we're at. And I don't want to be excessively political here, so if you'll work with me and kind of bracket this example that I want to give you outside of the campaign. But I think one of the most perfect examples of what we're up against happened this last week in the context of Hillary Clinton and the pneumonia situation, where she came out the next day and she said, this is the first time that Republicans have cared about women's health. And what's troubling to me about that, and I am not trying to make a comment about the election, what I want us to focus on is the fact that the fundamental agenda is to equate pneumonia, tonsillitis, you name it, any other kind of garden variety ailment with abortion.
That's what she did.
They fundamentally, Obamacare is moving in this direction of ensuring that abortion is knit into our health care as a definitional process of saying that abortion is just garden variety. That is an essential moment in our culture. This actually goes back to the passage of Obamacare, actually, when one of the congresswomen from California, they were debating Obamacare on the House floor, or actually it was in one of the subcommittees, and she said, I don't understand why we're talking about this, and she meant abortion, and she said, we're not talking about covering tonsillectomies. Again, it's this theme, and I want you to keep watching for it, because to tie back into your question of how we got here, is the abortion movement is really using the political arena to normalize abortion, to insist that those of us who believe that it is not just average ordinary health care, that we don't have a right to speak up about that, and to say that abortion is something outside the pale.
But you're making the tie here that while with Hillary's pneumonia is now tied to abortion, some people will probably look at that and say, well, that's, I don't know, maybe that's maybe a stretch. Help me understand, what are other instances where you see this unique undertow and maybe tying of this issue? Because all we know is abortion clinics are supposed to be safe, rare, and legal.
I think there's so many different directions I could go with that. Well, you know, it is interesting when you think about that mantra, which, by the way, came from Bill Clinton, safe, legal, and rare. And yet, abortion has done nothing but, well, it has decreased a little bit, but not enough. I like to focus on the safe side of that and this promise that somehow it could become ordinary. You mentioned the march that I had the privilege of being a part of in Selma with STAR. You know, thank you for, you know, showing leadership on that issue.
Yes.
You know, we went to Selma to march to say, enough with this idea that somehow the lives of the women who are lost in abortion clinics don't matter.
That's right.
That because it's a political issue, that's being swept under the rug. You know, when was the last time that you saw, you know, headlines about a woman who lost her life in an abortion clinic? And yet it happens all the time. It happens all the time, and it's covered up and swept under the rug. You know, we don't, you know, one of Chuck's issues that you have been such a leader on is calling for better record keeping. The other side doesn't even want to keep records on abortion because they don't want to have to report to the CDC when women are, and it's not just losing their lives, some of them are maimed, they're permanently injured, and it doesn't matter because it's a politicized procedure.
Yeah, Chuck, tell us about, and I know you're very familiar with the pregnancy clinics, which is support side, but before we go over there, tell me about some of the instances that are happening, even from things that you've seen, maybe from policy and legislation that have tried to maybe make abortion clinic regulations, you know, more challenging, and then also to, you know, there's just so much discussion out there on these issues. But I'd love to hear your perspective on where are we with abortion clinics, how safe are they, and what is your thought on some of the things that are actually happening today?
Well, it's a really knotty and complicated issue. One of the things we do at the Lozier Institute is publish pretty lengthy policy papers, and we aim them, though, for practical impact. The newest one is about our nation's abortion reporting laws, because the media will treat the heart of the matter is whether something is safe. Now, I fundamentally don't believe whether abortion is safe is a moral test of any kind. The Good Samaritan could have passed by and that gentleman would have died. It would have been perfectly safe for the Good Samaritan, like the priest who walked by and left him alone. It would have been perfectly safe for him to leave rather than take on this struggle. And no doubt having and carrying a child to term and raising that child is a struggle. So it's not really about safety. On the other hand, all of our abortion data comes from the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta is a professional organization, but on abortion, which we believe shouldn't be in their bailiwick, abortion is not a disease. Pregnancy is not a disease. It can trigger things. But that baby in there kicking and screaming 9 months down the road is not an infection. That's a human life. It got there. We know how it got there. That may be a fever, but it's not an infection. It's a human being. But CDC shouldn't have this data. But the last guy to run it, Willard Cates, is someone who called pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, as he put it, the #1 sexually transmitted disease in the United States. Now, if that's your attitude, you shouldn't be controlling the government's data. That's what we're getting, and it's based on the states. Well, there are about a third of the states, including 9 of the 10 with the highest abortion rates in the country, that don't even have statewide abortion reporting. The biggest one's California. You look at California, they don't publish an annual report. You don't get total abortions out of California unless you go to the partisan Guttmacher Institute. If you want to know what's safe, only 10 of the 50 states and the jurisdictions like DC are requiring clinics to report complications that happen at the clinic. Only 10 states do that. Well, they have a problem, of course, because when a woman leaves the clinic and she has a complication, and with medication abortion, she's taking the drugs herself over a multi-day period, you're not going to go to the abortion clinic if you hemorrhage. You're going to go to the emergency room, or you're going to call 911 in a panic. And there is data there to show there are significant sequelae that are happening, but most states don't require the emergency room to report that either. So basically, you've got a cloud out there and a political agenda that says we're just going to accept whatever level of harms happen here. And it doesn't need to be that way. So our report suggests all the things the states can do to change that. And that information should help us make a right decision, because at the end of the day, someone experiencing pregnancy may experience a wide variety of struggles, but they aren't per se sick, and abortion is not treatment.